On the 23rd of February 2019, Olivia Halcrow got into a heated, drunken argument with her then boyfriend Gary Cunningham, with whom she had been in an on and off abusive relationship that culminated in the death of the 29-year-old man. Mr. Cunningham had suffered 12 stab wounds and bled to death from a wound on his left leg. He was found by a delivery driver deceased in the corridor of the shared property. Police officers found Labinjo Halcrow in one of the flats and a blood-stained knife in her kitchen sink. She would later be found not guilty of murder, but convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to serve a term of 11 years in prison. But little did she know that this one act of defiance had unwittingly plunged her son into a harrowing sequence of events that would result in his untimely demise. On the February of 2019, Arthur's father, Thomas Hughes, was given custody of his son, certainly not by merit, but by the mere fact that he was the only parent not in state prison. In August 2019, Thomas met a 32-year-old woman by the name of Emma Tustin on a dating site. Emma Tustin was a disturbed, manipulative pick-me girl with a history shrouded in bizarre behavior. In 2013, Miss Tustin had thrown herself off the top of a multi-storied car park after her boyfriend had threatened to leave her. Another time, she threw herself out of a bedroom window to stop her boyfriend from going out with his best friend. An ex-boyfriend of hers, when interviewed by the Daily Mail, had nothing positive to say. He stated, "She's a black widow. She sucks the life out of each man she gets together with. She had no maternal instinct whatsoever. She wanted children for the attention they brought her as newborns and for child benefit. But she didn't want to know once the attention died away and she was left at home with a baby." Emma Tustin had received multiple visits from Child Protective Services, allowing her to master techniques that allowed her to escape scrutiny, ever ready to put on the waterworks to make herself appear as a helpless victim rather than the perpetrator. At this point in her life, Emma Tustin was a mother of 4, but had already lost custody of 2 of the children due to her unhinged behavior. In this video, we see Arthur barely mastering the strength to pick up his duvet as he whimpers and cries, a clear sign of the toll the mental and physical abuse he had to endure had taken. He would then stuff the blanket in the cupboard under the stairs, where on those very stairs he would be forced to stand at attention for up to 16 hours a day without food or water. And whenever he was given water, an enormous amount of salt would be added to it to ensure he only got enough to stay alive, but not feel relieved. Pay attention to the salt, because it's going to become an important detail later on. As Thomas Hughes and Emma Tustin's relationship progressed, family members and teachers noted a steep decline in Arthur's mental and physical health. According to family, they say his father developed a more authoritarian stance with him, and his patience for the child grew shorter and shorter with each passing day. Teachers noted that the once jovial boy had turned into a hollow husk of his former self, noting that he developed a crippling anxiety and was fixated on the thought that his father was either going to kill him or abandon him forever. A sad premonition of what riddled his future. It is important, however, to note that Arthur had expressed concerns about his father's intention to kill him long before he started dating Miss Tustin. In a BBC interview, it stated that the boy had expressed this to his wider family, his doctor, and his school for well over a year, and nobody listened. When Arthur's mother had gone to prison, his family had decided to tell him she had gone to join the military, perhaps to prevent further distressing the already anxiety-ridden boy. However, in some time after Miss Tustin came into his life, the truth was revealed to Arthur, further deteriorating his state of mind. He was said to be anxious, clingy, and experience nightmares. Lucky for Arthur, Thomas Hughes was living with his mother for the most part of late 2019 and early 2020, and consequently the boy was spared a lot of abuse. The pandemic ushered in an ominous future for Arthur. With the UK Prime Minister issuing a national lockdown, Arthur's fate was further sealed.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home. Because the critical thing we must do to stop the disease spreading between households, That is why people will only be allowed to leave their home for the following very limited purposes.
The lockdown came with a slew of preconditions, among them being that there would be no more socializing, no more school, and no mixing between households. Thomas Hughes would consequently move in with Emma Tustin and her 2 kids. We now have 5 people living in Emma Tustin's 2-bedroom apartment in Solihull, cut off from the rest of the world, and regrettably tensions began to rise, with Arthur bearing the brunt of it all. On the 16th of April 2020, Arthur confided in his grandmother that Thomas had grabbed him by the face and called him an ugly, horrible brat as he slammed him against the wall. Arthur would then lift his shirt to reveal distinct bruising on his shoulder. His grandmother took a picture of this bruising and reported it to social services. On the 17th, 2 social workers were promptly sent to the family address, but regrettably, this was an arranged visit. They were allowing Emma Tustin the time to coach the kids, feigning the image of a happy family. The bruises were choked up to be a result of horseplay between the kids, with a supposed boxing glove. Miss Emma Tustin had once again weaseled her way out of detection. The following day, Arthur's uncle Daniel Hughes, after learning of the social worker's failure to intervene, sent the photos to the police. The police, on learning that the social services had already visited the family, logged the case, but decided they didn't see the need for further investigation. Daniel Hughes and other family members would then attempt to visit the house to confront Thomas and Tustin. After the attempted visit, he contacted West Midlands Police to report his concerns. But instead of taking any action, an officer threatened him with arrest for violating COVID rules if he tried to revisit the house. In May 2020, another report would be filed to the social services by Emma Tustin's stepdad, John Dutton. He had begun to grow concerned for the boy, as he'd noticed Arthur had lost a lot of weight since moving in with Tustin, and strongly felt it was an ominous indication of the suffering the boy was undergoing behind closed doors. He was quoted saying that when the boy visited him, he wasn't allowed any food by his father because he'd been naughty, and was forced to sit motionless and in silence at the kitchen table, staring at the wall like a zombie. He also said that Mr. Hughes had admitted to slashing Arthur's beloved Liverpool and Birmingham City football shirts. And despite all of this, instead of pressing the matter, Mr. Dutton elected to stop allowing Arthur into his house on account that his wife was distressed at how the boy was being treated, thus further resigning Arthur to his ill fate. It's safe to say things took a dramatic turn for the worse for Arthur. The 2 abusive guardians gained newfound confidence in their evasion of any dire consequences to themselves. The 2 complemented the worst parts of each other, Emma Tustin being a manipulative, attention-seeking narcissist, and Thomas Hughes, a weak man-child, unable to control his son without resorting to violence and petty threats. High on the success of their evasion, the crude couple escalated their petty torture antics. In this CCTV footage, we can see Thomas and Emma lounging in their living room, enjoying some ice cream. It's one of the hottest days in the year, and Arthur was made to stand on the bottom step, forced to wear a thick onesie in the sweltering heat as the couple kept the door open to monitor him, ensuring he wouldn't get any food or water as they taunted him with their ice cream. In this clip, we see Tustin eating some McDonald's while Arthur starves in the next corridor. In other revelations brought to court, you can hear the 6-year-old cry out in sorrow when nobody was listening. The Blake individual he's referring to is his uncle. He would call out to him and his grandmother on occasion despite them not being present. Thomas Hughes would later confess in court that he would at times press on the child's pressure points, a technique he had picked up from watching police handle climate protesters. He confessed to the police that he couldn't hit a woman or her kids, so Arthur took the brunt of his frustrations. He was later quoted saying that it was a clash of egos, and that was his way of crushing his son's ego. At times, taunting him by telling him he would take him to his grandmother's, and then driving him around and telling him it would not happen. On the 8th of June, Arthur's school reopened, but Thomas Hughes would not send him back, offering up the excuse that the child had not slept well and would be coming back the next day. Over the next few days, he reported that Arthur was losing weight and could be susceptible to fainting. Arthur never went back to school before his death. In subpoenaed messages read to the jury, we see a predator and desperate pit girl trying to get rid of the one object standing between her and the subject of her desires. Emma Tustin had a crippling fear that Thomas Hughes would leave her for Olivia Halcrow. To prevent this future, we see desperate messages from her claiming to be broken and crying, pleading with Thomas to take the boy back to his grandmother in her effort to get rid of Arthur by any means. In a reply message, Mr. Hughes told her, "End him, finish him, and take his jaw off." In another message, Thomas tells Tustin to just gag him or something, tie some rope around his mouth with a sock in it or something. Thomas Shelby thought of himself as a macho tough guy. I wonder if he feels the same contending with men his age in prison. Arthur was clearly stuck between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, a sycophant, jealous, and suicidal stepmother, and on the other, a narcissistic man-child with delusions of grandeur. Fate could not have dealt a more cruel hand. On the 15th of June, Tustin took Arthur to a hair appointment with her hairdresser Catherine Millinge, who said Arthur was told to face the door and not move during the 6-hour session, while Tustin's children played and had a picnic outside. She described his appearance as skeletal and said his legs were shaking, unable to hold his frail frame up. While there, he was given a sandwich by the couple, which he promptly spat out, probably because it was doused in salt. On the following day, the 16th of June, is when this footage was recorded. Here we see Arthur wake up and put his bedding away as he prepares to go back to finish their hair appointment. During the last day of the hair appointment, witnesses say Thomas and Tustin took turns publicly berating the boy and described it looked like a game of tennis. Tobias Jarman, the hairdresser's partner, snuck the boy a glass of water, to which he noted he looked petrified. His lips were cracked, hair dirty, nails dirty, and he looked gaunt and worn out. A telltale sign of the approaching end. This would be the last time Arthur would be seen alive.
I'm not sure what transpired at this point because Emma Tustin has consistently lied about the turn of events. However, we do know that Thomas went off to do some shopping. And as he was out, Emma texted him, letting him know that Arthur had supposedly been misbehaving. Thomas replied with one clear and concise message, "End him." Tustin would then take Arthur to the bathroom, where she fed him her preferred torture method, a concentrated mixture of salt and water, probably in an effort to induce hypernatremia or salt poisoning, where extreme intoxication can cause seizures and comas. It should be noted that some sources say a lethal dose of salt in children could be as little as 5 teaspoons. Over the next 45 minutes, the salt would take its toll on Arthur's body as he curled into a fetal position on the floor, crying. Tustin would then take a photo of him and send it to Thomas. When this photo was shown in court, Emma Tustin admitted Arthur had no more strength left in him at that point.
But the boy wasn't dying. He was suffering, but he wasn't dying. And in anger and frustration, Emma Tustin launched one final assault on the defenseless child, one that would ensure his death. At her trial, the judge described the attack as this: "The final act of killing was done by you, Miss Tustin. You shook him so that his head was hyperextended and flexed on his neck, while at the same time hitting it against a wall or the floor several times. The amount of violence you used on him produced forces on his body equivalent to those which a high-speed road traffic collision might have otherwise produced. The injuries sustained by him were extensive and devastating. I am sure from the expert evidence at trial that he collapsed at once and could not have been revived after that. I am sure that at the moment you launched this attack on him, you intended that he should die." After ensuring Arthur's demise, Emma Tustin took photos of his lifeless body and sent them to Thomas Hughes. Hughes came back home at 2:30 p.m. and at 2:42, the following 991 call was made.
Ambulance service, is the patient breathing?
Barely.
Okay, is he breathing right now though, even if he's...
Is he breathing, Tom? He keeps taking big dark breaths. Basically, my 6-year-old stepson is fallen, he's banged his head.
Okay.
And while he was on the floor, he's banged his head another 5 times.
Okay.
He's lost colour, he's got a big lump on his head.
Is he awake?
So what, sorry?
Is he awake?
He's half in and out,
Okay.
but he's banged his head quite hard.
Is his breathing noisy or abnormal?
Is it noisy or abnormal? It's barely there, he's barely breathing, he's in and out, he's taking it hard.
Okay.
He's basically been treating us all up. Threw himself on the floor, he's headbutting the floor. I'm trying to pick him up in the process, he's headbutting me in the process.
Okay.
I've got him up, he was breathing like a little bit better at first.
Yeah.
Washed him down, put some water down him, tried to obviously get him
Okay.
like, a bit more colour in him, but then obviously I've seen the lump on his head that he's done to himself.
Right. Help's been arranged for him, okay?
Yeah.
Try and keep calm for me. Can you get him lay out flat on his back?
Flat on his back.
How
Yeah,
old
on
is
his
he?
He's 6, nearly 7.
Years old. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, there is me.
He's losing colour, he's very pale, but obviously it's a big bang, he's knocked himself out by the look of him.
And he's barely breathing now.
He's breathing, he's barely breathing, he's lifeless at the minute.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you how to give basic life support, okay? So you can just keep going. Still not responding?
No.
Okay, just keep going for me.
He's
Don't
got
stop.
two big lumps on his head where he's banged himself.
Okay. Just keep going, don't stop.
Body cam footage shows Tustin crying as she claimed Arthur repeatedly headbutted the floor.
Just briefly, what happened?
Basically, he'd gone out to get me a birthday cake and stuff for the kids. Arthur was told to sit on the thinking step. Arthur's put himself all over the floor. He's banged himself off the radiator. He's hit me, he's kicked me in the process of me trying to get him back on the thinking step. He's then gone on all fours on the floor and I've told him to get up. And I shut the door over and all I heard was a crack off the floor. He was headbutting the floor on all fours. Headbutted the floor once, said, "Arthur, get up, you're going to hurt yourself. I've phoned your dad." He went, "I don't care." At that point he was fine. And then he dropped his head again as I've tried to bear hug him and pick him up, and he headbutted the floor 3 times.
Here on this carpet?
Round about, the door was shut, so if you go in, I'll show you. Because it's probably about here his head was, but it's concrete, there's no underlay under that. But he'd banged his head 3 or 4 times. Obviously then went and picked him up. He'd knocked himself unconscious. I picked him up, put him on the sofa, poured water in his mouth.
So you come in, he's banged his head 3 or 4 times here.
I was in the kitchen, then I'd sat down in the living room and that's when he threw himself on the floor.
And you heard him banging his head.
Bang his head.
So what did you do?
I came out to him and told him to get up. He told me no. So I tried to bear hug him and put my arms underneath him and pick him up. And he dropped and he banged his head another 3 times off the floor. And as I picked him up, he hit me and he kicked me as I was trying to get him up.
And then what? So, and you went?
I picked him up off the floor.
Yeah.
Tried to put him on the stairs just to get him to, but his head's obviously going out, so I put him straight on the stairs. I said, "Wherever you've got to phone an ambulance."
So he's unresponsive?
Yeah. Like I say, he's like the last 6 months, he's battered both my kids. He's smashed this house to pieces. He's battered his dad. He's hit me. When I tried to get him off the floor from headbutting the floor, he headbutted me and he kicked me and he's hit me. Yesterday we went to my friend's house and he pushed me down 5 stairs. "You're not my real mum, I hate you. I'm going to get my mum to kill you," he said. Okay. And even so, I've done my best for that kid. It's me. I tried to get him off the floor.
On the 17th of June 2020, doctors concluded nothing could be done to save Arthur, and his life support machine was switched off at 1 a.m. Emma Tustin was charged with murder and given a sentence of a minimum of 29 years. Thomas Hughes, because he wasn't present during the final assault, was charged with manslaughter and given a minimum of 21 years. And despite their harrowing roles in Arthur's death, the pair are appealing their sentences, which are also being charged as unduly lenient. As of the 2nd of July 2024, Arthur's sentence was increased by 3 years. When asked to comment on the length of the sentencing, Arthur's grandmother said, "No, life should mean life. They took Arthur's life. There was no remorse, no sympathy shown." And with that, my lovely viewers, that is the end of this tragic case. Feel free to let me know your opinions in the comments section. I would love to know your thoughts on this case. Kindly show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. And if you need an editor, contact the WhatsApp number in the description below. And if you'd like to further support the channel, subscribe to the Patreon. That would really help me increase the quality of videos and get more videos out to you faster. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.